Part 2 of session 32. Let's finish this session talking about wanderers. Let's begin. Alright, in the last video we talked about the rest of the information that we had in session 32 concerning sexual energy transfer. And that's important to keep in mind so we kind of get context into what the first questions are going to be from Don. Just remember this is all from the same session, so it's a separate video, different topic. It was just a little curve that Don took now talking about wanderers, but in the same context. So you're going to see some similarity in terms of what the question is, but we'll get to that. So far, we have discussed everything that has to do, and this is going to be a little bit helpful too. In the last video, we talked about the energy centers in a way that it has to do with the sexual energy transfer, but also in terms of how they work, and that the way they work kind of help always understand what's happening in consciousness, because even though we're humans here and we're trying to decode this reality for humans from our human perspective, we have to also keep in mind that we are energy beings and we are light beings. This is not a poetic way of talking about us. This is a reality. This is just something that we are, and for us to understand ourselves, we just have to get a good grip on that. So that's important. Before we get into the first question, I don't know if you have noticed, but I try my best to use music from my friend Dream State Logic Colby, and like you can see, this is Starseed Transmission, what are you listening at the back or at the background. So if you want to check out his music, I'm not doing any ads or anything. He actually puts his music for free out there, and he allowed me to use his music for these videos. The reason why to me is so fascinating is because the two of us, and we didn't know when we met each other, the two of us are pretty much aligned with the law of one and Buddhism and so on. So if you're listening to this, Colby, thank you, brother. Also, if you are not Colby, then you definitely have to check Colby's music. It's really inspiring for me. I listen to it as often as I can, when I need some time to work. And I've said this in the past, but I'm just really grateful, for his music and for him, allowing me to use his music here. And, we are in pretty much congruency. So in any case, link in the description, in the description box, and go check out his music. It's free. If you want to, contribute to him, donate, that's up to you. But just listen to his music and, I don't know, just take off on a space journey. All right, so now we can get into the meat and bones of this last part of the session. Session 32, question 9. Don says, what we have, I am assuming from we have previously looked at, we have on Earth today and have had in the past 4th, 5th, and 6th density wanderers. As they come into incarnation in the physical of this density for a period as a wanderer, what types of polarizations with respect to the various rays do they find affecting them? Can you tell me that? So Rod's going to go to explain something that is... Alright, we got to take this very carefully, and I'll go, in details of what I mean. But first, Don is still, remember, from the beginning of the video, I said already that we're coming from the questions about sexual energy transfer and the different... or the differences between the rays when these rays are activated and used for energy transfer through sexual means. So now Don is asking if the wanderers that are coming here, because of their background, who they are, and their configuration, if you will, when they incarnate here, do they have problems, with these various rays? How do they affect them? And I think it's crucial to know the words that Don is using here when he says, what types of polarizations with respect to the various rays do they find affecting them? So polarization in terms of the rays and affection, like how does that affect them? So Ra says, I believe I grasped the thrust of your query. Please ask further if this answer is not sufficient. Fourth density wanderers, of which there are not many, will tend to choose those entities which seem to be full of love or in need of love. There is the great probability of entities making errors in judgment due to the compassion with which other selves are viewed. So here's the first stop. We're talking about fourth density wanderers. There's things that we can take out of this answer, and information that is valuable for the seeker or that wants to know. When we talk about wanderers, who are you? What kind of wanderer are you? First of all, it's always important to keep in mind that we're talking about 1981. In 1981, I don't remember the amount of, in the millions of wanderers that were there, but I know it was a significant percentage of the population then. I assume only that wanderers have increased in numbers and in percentage as well in terms of the global population. So there is a significant amount of them already. In any case, we can still use the same. There's no reason to think that these ratios have changed, because we're talking about wanderers that are from 4th, 5th, and 6th density. So there are no wanderers from 7th or from 8th or from the 12th density, if somebody ever says that. So it's only 4th, 5th, and 6th. So any wanderer comes actually from another density. There are not many 4th density wanderers, and that's what they're saying here. This is going to fit better with the rest of the answer, but we'll get to that. So that's the first thing we're going to get. There's not many wanderers. However, those 4th density wanderers, in terms of how they pick their relationships and how they interact with other selves, they have an imbalance, say, towards love. So they are very loving, and they're, like they say, they seem, because they're so full of love, they always have the arrogant judgment, or they tend to have the arrogant judgment of having seeking those full of love or need of love. That's the important part. So somebody who is full of love, they'll try to find that person. Somebody who is in need of love also, because they feel that resonance with the person and they want to give that love. So that is their tendency, that's their direction. So there is, I'm not sure what they mean with errors in judgment, because I guess that is just in the way of how they can actually help, because they're not balanced in wisdom at that point. So they will make errors in judgment. And I mean, I've seen over time, working with people, that there's many wanderers who have this imbalance. I'm not sure if they're 4th density, but they do have this imbalance of seeking broken people who they think they can fix. And this is a very compassionate and, I would say, very noble thing to do. It's actually the noble's path, I would say, of somebody who is pure in love, to try to do this. And I'm not going to say they're suffering, but they do seem like they're suffering, because they always complain about their relationships, because they always get hurt and so on. So that is a wanderer who clearly shows that they have an imbalance of seeking people who are broken so they can fill them with their love. And again, that just depicts the way they are. And like I said, I don't know, I don't even know if I can call it suffering, because if somebody's going through that process and they are in a cyclical process, then it only means that they know that they have to go through that. So, I don't want to sound like I'm judgmental here. It's just how it is. I can't judge a bird that is singing. I can't judge the lion that is eating, the prey. It's just how it is. And people just revolve around the world the way they are. But this is a good insight for people who are, or consider themselves, wanderers from 4th density. They seek people have full of love, and people who are in need of love, which I call, broken people who are, they're loving entities, of course. Everybody's a loving entity. I'm not going to say they're negative entities, otherwise they would be using, the 4th density wanderer in this case. So these broken people are just, affected people in their lower chakras who have serious problems of personality, and they just haven't found their way to the heart. And These are like the people that fourth density wanderers look for, and of course people full of love. Okay, I think I was a little too redundant there, so let's go to the next part of the answer. What Ra says: the fifth density wanderer is one who is not tremendously affected by the stimulus of the various rays of other self, and in its own way offers itself when a need is seen. Such entities are not likely to engage in the, shall we say, custom of your peoples called marriage, and are very likely to feel an aversion to childbearing and child raising due to the awareness of the impropriety of the planetary vibrations relative to the harmonious vibrations of the density of light. So now we have on the other side the people who are from fifth density. They don't say how many are, fifth density wanderers here. I gotta say, I sort of relate to the fifth density wanderer in the way that they may have an inclination or imbalance, because now we're talking on an imbalance of wisdom over love, and that's what the fifth wanderer is going through. It's learning the lessons of wisdom and light. So this and fifth density it's actually a tough, I don't want to say it's a tough, but it's a tougher density. It's like third density. If you remember from last video, we talked about the similarities that exist between 1, 3, 5 and possibly 7, and the similarities between 2, 4 and 6, which are the inward and the outward. So in this case, the fifth density wanderer, it seems to be more inclined to be more seeker of other information rather than the relationship themselves. And that's why they say that they're not tremendously affected by the stimulus of various rays of other self. In its own way, offers itself when a need is seen. So to me, this sounds like when somebody just is not quite interested in helping, or I don't want to say help, but to the martyr type of mentality that the fourth density may have, which is just an abundance of love. It's seeking that love, it's trying to interact. The wisdom side of the fifth density may be more focused on the task at hand, but it would offer itself when a need is seen, because that's just their service. And it's not as distracted in relationships, or that's just the inclination itself. We're gonna get into a semi-conclusion here because I need to put something into context. So again, they also say such entities are not likely to engage in marriage. That's something I can definitely relate to, because I never believed in that, and a lot of people don't believe in that. It's just, I guess it's definitely a higher consciousness type of, and I don't need to sound anyways, like higher, you know what I mean. I don't need to explain that, but it's you just know that certain, it's almost like offending people or doing harm. You know that in a higher consciousness you don't do that. Marriage is that sort of thing too, in the way we manage it here on Earth. I'm not talking about bonding with people. That's a totally different thing. So impropriety of the planetary vibrations, of course, they're quite aware of the improper ways of this planet's vibration to have children, because that it's just knowing how the situation, I can translate it as this, knowing what the situation is. It's a commitment. It's a very hard commitment to have children. So I can relate to that, because there is an aversion to have children when society is the way it is. Why would you want to do that? And why would you want to do that to yourself? Again, I know I sound terrible here. People don't like to have children. That's fine. What I'm saying, it's the awareness of the consciousness. The fifth density knows of the improper ways of this planet in and of itself. So again, nothing wrong obviously with having children. We need to survive. So kudos to you people who have children. I have one, so it's not like I'm exempt from this. I did have mine, so but no more. That's it. All right. So Ra continues and says, The sixth density, whose means of propagation you may liken to what you call fusion, is likely to refrain, to a great extent, from the bisexual reproductive programming of the bodily complex, and instead seek out those with whom the sexual energy transfer is of the complete fusion nature insofar as this is possible in manifestation in third density. Okay, so here's where we're going to wrap it up in terms of, this question. It's another question looming here, but especially related to this final answer that Ra gives, or the last part of his answer, their answer. So they say, okay, so the sixth density, in a sense, is it's not really interested in having bisexual reproductions, to engage in that, because they're more inclined to have a full relationship or a full merging with the other self that has that type of quality. Now, this sounds, because now we need to bring something in. The majority of the wanderers are sixth density. This is something that Ra said already in previous sessions, I believe. So the majority being of sixth density, it's hard to believe that naturally everybody who is a wanderer from sixth density may refrain themselves from having bisexual reproduction acts, or or just the experiences themselves, as they call it. They say from the bisexual reproductive programming of the bodily complex. So does that mean they don't want to have sex? They don't want to engage in these activities? Possibly, because it's a part of their I don't want to say programming, but part of their nature of who they are already in a higher density of consciousness. So there is a sort of seeking that gets into that idea of finding a person that is in a higher level of consciousness, so they can share this. Maybe they're not interested in the lowest possible experiences of sexuality, the animalistic type of exploration, which again could be part of the whole development of sexuality in general for a mind-body-spirit complex that is in third density. But we have to bring into account something. Don started asking this question in terms of the wanderer that comes into incarnation. Now, what happens when a wanderer comes into incarnation for the first time? Perhaps for the first time they do have this, but in the process of that incarnation, things change. They are now bound to Earth, bound to the planetary mind, the collective consciousness, and their experiences start, shaping who they are. So now we're gonna have a sort of sixth density wanderer who is acclimatized, used to the planetary vibrations in third density, so they kind of change and shape that way. I don't know how to put it, but it's how they kind of merge with third density again. Ra has said in the past that wanderers have the risk of getting involved with the third density vibrations, and that's totally understandable, because as we come here, we become karmically involved and we change who we are in a great way. So again, since we are having an influx of wanderers from other places, there might be a difference between the most recent sixth density wanderers. So if you feel like you are a wanderer and you feel like you are more in line with what Ra is saying here, then this may be an indication that you are more a fresh wanderer. This may also sound like if you are extremely sensitive to all the rest of the madness that is going on Earth, then you might be a fresh wanderer. I actually met a girl who told me that she had a reading from an Arabic nation. I forgot where she was from. And she told me that the reading said that she was a one-time comer. To me, it didn't make sense back then because I wasn't very involved in this. But now I understand in the way she said it that she has never been in this planet, or at least that's how it sounds. And she was a fresh wanderer, possibly. So this is quite possible. We're having, especially younger generations, they may be fresh wanderers. But there are wanderers from hundreds and thousands of years ago who have come here and have just stayed. And those have shaped their lives, or who they are, their mind, body, spirit complex configuration and time space, sort of to be aligned with this. So this may not apply to those wanderers that have been here for a long time. Again, this is just me speculating. I'm interpreting something. Don't take this word, as divine by any means, please. So that's just what I can take out of here, because I know that there are 6 density wanderers who are definitely more engaged into the bisexual reproductive programming, as they call it. So hope that makes sense. In any case, I think that it's a good way to assess if you are from a recent wanderer, and how sensitive you are to these whole have you gotten used to planet Earth yet? That's the question. That may give you an indication. And again, that's just speculation, nothing that Ross said. Let's go back to the material. So Don is going to ask to expand more on that last phrase when they said, can complete fusion nature. So he says, can you expand a little bit on what you mean by complete fusion nature? Ross says, the entire creation is of the one creator. Thus the division of sexual activity into simply that of the bodily complex is an artificial division. All things thusly being seen as sexual equally, the mind, the body, and the spirit, all of which are part of the polarity of the entity. Thus sexual fusion may be seen with or without what you may call sexual intercourse to be the complete melding of the mind, the body, and the spirit in what feels to be a constant orgasm, shall we say, of joy and delight, each in the other beingness. Okay, so now they're just explaining what they mean by complete fusion, as they call it. And well, first of all, let's go to metaphysics and other dimensions, because the whole creation is one. Okay, and the higher we advance in our progression of a soul, then we're going to see that we start learning more and more the lessons of who we are. Who we are is one being, and there is the realization that all the things that we associated ourselves, and this can get a little bit trippy, but every single association that we have in our database and experience needs to merge with the concept of oneness. Meaning that there are densities where, and this will happen very soon in 4th and 5th density, where your association with male and female starts breaking apart because you realize that you are actually both. And in 3rd density, that's crazy. You cannot be both, and there are let's not go down that rabbit hole. Okay. So, but there is a clear differentiation, because we are a bodily complex here. We are experiencing physicality. Space-time in 3rd density is very physical. So we do have the difference, clear difference. You can hear a man's voice or a woman's voice for the most part and identify the gender. You can analyze the reactions of people, how emotional and how sentimental and so on, and you can get the differentiation that doesn't happen in other densities. So it's not so much of a discernment that happens, and that's why when they talk about sexual reproduction from the higher densities and incarnating here, then there is less seeking of those differences, and all they seek is just that energy that is present in the individual for them to have a full. They want to have that full merging that they're accustomed in 6th density, say. So again, they see sexual. Not that they see it. This is not something that I don't believe. The vast majority, because that would be too much of a piercing of the veil. Although it may happen. but I don't think this is something that is conscious. You are not consciously, seeking that, but in your subconscious, if you're a wanderer, you may be seeing this, as how you seek relationships, in the way you want to find a partner, somebody to be with. You may be seeking somebody who, in fact, kind of resembles that idea, that vague idea that you have of complete fusion. You can liken this to the to people who just want to have somebody to be with, and they just don't care who the person is. They just want to have somebody because they're acting in the most instinctive way of having a partner and see what happens. That's the initial explorations, and people who want a more meaningful relationships. And when I say meaningful, I don't want to bring in any cultural biases or anything. It's a subjective and very subconscious direction that you have to find somebody who is meaningful for you, not in any standard or stereotype, but in your standard of what it is to have a complete fusion. Somebody who mirrors who you are, not so much in the things that you don't have, because that's the purpose of relationships, but in the way that it mirrors the seeking path that you have. This can get very opaque depending on what the different distortions that may be in the lower chakras, because that's always clouding our own seeking, and we get distracted in our body and our identity and so on. So it's just, I know I'm going all over the place, and I'm trying to depict the seeking that a sixth density wanderer may have subconsciously and not quite consciously when seeking somebody. It's almost like you're looking for something you cannot explain in somebody else, and you can't really find it for two reasons. One, because everybody's quite distorted, and two, because it's a very difficult concept for you to in your consciousness try to structure together because of the veil process. So I hope I made sense there. As usual, leave me a comment and we'll discuss it. And if you have anything else to add, maybe another insight, I would love that too, because here we're just speculating what this means. So, all right. Don continues and says, would then many wanderers of the higher densities have considerable problems with respect to incarnation in third density because of this different orientation? Good question. Ra says, the probability of such problems, as you call them, due to sixth density incarnating in third, is rather large. It is not necessarily a problem if you would call it thusly. It depends upon the unique orientation of each mind-body-spirit complex having this situation or placement of vibratory relativities. Okay. How do we explain this? Okay. So, because wanderers have this characteristic of coming with a specific direction, orientation in terms of relationships, and how they see mating with one of their like, would they have problems? And surely, of course. Not only are they bringing it from higher consciousness, but we are on a planet that is quite distorted, as I have said. Again, I don't want this to sound bad. I actually, whenever I say this, I say it with passion because of the potential that exists because of the distortions. It's almost like, if you like working and doing something and you find that everything's neat and organized and you don't have anything to do, then you don't have much to work. But if you like organizing and you find a big mess, then you have a lot of potential for work. It depends on you. How much do you want to be of service here? Anyhow, so they say that the possibility of such problems are huge. Pretty much what they're saying. It is, but they say, it's not necessarily a problem because, like I said, it's just just another way of defining yourself and having experiences. We tend sometimes to believe or see this creation or this reality as something that needs fixing, that we have to fix. We have to, we're in a big mess, running out of time, it's going to happen. None of that is going to happen. This is an illusion that, you know, it's not to take responsibility away, but not to feel in a crisis, you know, like something needs to be done now. Only if you say so, you know, and I'm not saying don't feel that way, but I think that clouds our idea of, you know, what are problems, how do we confront them, you know, and, you know, of course, in the back of my mind, I always have, you know, the Oriental philosophy, and I don't believe that there is any issues. You know, we are who we are, and that's it. This battle between good and evil is, it's pretty, you know, third density. It's not happening. So in the same way here, I don't think this is a problem, like Ra is saying, you know, this is just something, it depends, they say, I love how they phrase this, it depends upon the unique orientation of each mind-body-spirit complex, so the orientation of the person having this situation or placement of vibratory relativities. So having this placement or vibratory relativities in terms of the configuration of the entity as it comes into incarnation. You see, when our true self, the real self in time-space, decides to incarnate here, it needs to configure a body and a mind, of course, and that creates the specific person that you are here. So in that configuration, of course, there are relativities. To me, that's what they mean when they say placement of vibratory relativities. Those vibratory relativities are your ID, you know, your signature, let's put it that way, your vibratory signature in yourself. So it will depend on that, because now you're also having a programming that makes you have some sort of inclination. You know, your identity and your love, or your heart chakra and your sacral chakra may have, you know, a specific programming, vibration, a structural vibration, and because of that, it will depend on, you know, what kind of problems you may have, which is just another way of, you know, talking about the seeking. You know, the I don't want to use the word problems, that, you know, they didn't use it either, so it's almost like, you know, the adventures of the seeking. Yes, that sounds even better. The adventures of seeking. And that's it, you know, it's not like we're here to find, you know, our twin flame, you know. That's very rare, actually, rarely happens. There's no such thing as, you know, every wanderer or every seeker is bound to find their twin flame, you know. That's it's a very 3D passionate romantic thing. Sorry, I don't mean to sound mean in terms of that seeking, but that's a topic for another day. But surely, you know, we are here to appreciate, I mean, our twin flame should be everybody. Let's put it that way. How about that? You know, isn't that a better task, you know, than to be limited into just one person that we need to find, you know? How about everybody's our twin flame, and we just need to organize ourselves to see it that way? You know who did that? Gautama Siddhartha. Anyhow. El Buddha. Next question. Don says, can you give me an idea how the different colors... This is a difficult question to ask. I hardly have any words. What I'm trying to get at is how the different colors, I might say, originate as these functions, or the essence, you might say, of the origin of these colors as functions for the different expressions in consciousness. I don't know if this question is sufficient. Let me try to, because I know Ra's answer here, let me try to decode this. Don wants to know the nature of the colors. Why are these colors manifested? And in essence, you know, why is the root chakra red? Simple as that, just like a child's question. And I get it that way, you know, and I believe that's, you know, what Ra explained. But that's what it's, I hardly have any words. What I'm trying to get is how the different colors, I might say, originate as these functions, or the essence of the origins of these colors as function of different expressions of consciousness. So why is orange, you know, associated with the sacral chakra? So Ra's answer is pretty good. Ra says, this question is sufficiently clear for us to attempt explanation of what, as you have observed, is not easily grasped material for the intellectual mind. The nature of vibration is such that it may be seen as having mathematically straight or narrow steps. These steps may be seen as having boundaries. Within each boundary there are infinite gradations or vibration of color or color. However, as one approaches a boundary, an effort must be made to cross that boundary. Okay, so that boundary is the difference between yellow and green. And we know there are gradations there. I'm not sure why they say it's hard, for the intellectual mind to grasp it. I guess, I don't know. I kind of grasp it from an intellectual way, in that, first of all, everything is vibration. I don't know if they say it here. They say, as you observe, it's not easy to grasp. Okay, the nature of vibration. Everything is energy, and energy is vibrating. Okay, good start. The nature of vibration is such that it may be seen as having mathematically straight, straight, or narrow steps. So these steps may be seen as having boundaries, of course. So there are limitations within those, the vibrating structure of the pattern that is being elicited. So because of that, there are, just like we have frequencies. The frequencies fall into different, the spectrum of the colors. So in between them, then there is the boundary that needs to be approached. There is an infinite, of course, gradation of it, because the more you zoom in, the more you can have different vibrations within that spectrum. So that's why everything seems to be, or is, a hologram of the photon. And the photon, expressed in any sort of density or in octaves, can have a different, I don't want to say signature of vibration, but a different pattern of vibration. So that's why the colors are manifested in those. So in the octave, when the octave is manifested, we have that the steps that need to be taken for consciousness to realize itself, then there needs to be limitations. Those limitations, of course, are illusory, because there is no such limitation in the fractalized portion of the creator, in the photon themselves. So when we see that we need to have a layer, or a cake of layers in which we go through, then there needs to be, boundaries, and those boundaries are important, and there needs to be an effort to be crossed. That is consciousness. In consciousness, we have the effort to go from third density to fourth density. So from yellow ray vibration to green ray vibration. And that is an effort in consciousness, of course. So we kind of like surpass the limitations or illusory boundaries of third density in consciousness, so we can transcend. So that's the reason why we have colors in this way. They're just manifestations of vibration, and depending on the vibration, then that color is manifested thusly. So, all right. Next part of this answer, Ra says, these colors are a simplistic way of expressing the boundary divisions of your density. There is also the time-space analogy, which may be seen as the color itself in a modified aspect. So, again, yeah, the time-space definitely has a, it seems, it makes sense that it has a different sort of perception of what the color itself is. But they say, okay, these colors are a simplistic way of expressing the boundary divisions of your density. The boundary divisions of our density are the whole spectrum that we have. Remember, we are also, and this is, I believe that when they're saying the boundary divisions of our density are these 7 subplanes that we are, our 7 chakras. So those colors that we have are a simplistic way of expressing the boundary divisions that are of our density. So again, it's not like it's red as we know it, but it is the analog of red in vibration that exists there. So we can liken it to that. And there's also the time-space analogy, which may be seen as the color itself in a modified aspect, because in time-space we perceive vibration differently than obviously we see it in space-time. In space-time, we see colors as a reflection of light in the material that is being shined upon, and we see that that reflection of that color, or the it's not so much the reflection, but the absorption of the color, and that is what we see. So that vibration is being held there, and we can see that as everything else is reflected, and we perceive what it's being taken from the whole spectrum of light. So in time space, it's definitely different. We don't have eyes as we have them here that decode those frequencies. We have a different perception of what vibration is, and a more realistic way of perceiving the creation. That's very important to keep in mind. This is not our true self. This is not our true essence. This is not our true beingness. Time space is the real self, if you want to call it that way. Not the ultimate self, but just the most realistic self that exists, the eternal self. So I hope that makes sense. All right. Don goes to the next question, says, I just meant, was it possible, say, for a green ray? We're skipping a question here. Let me just make sure. Last question was 32.12. Yeah. So Don asks, I didn't include it here. You can go read it if you want. Session 32.13. But Don was asking something about the which it's explained here. I don't need to go through this. All right. So he says, I just meant, was it possible, say, for a green ray, when we are talking about green ray activation and energy transfers? Is it possible for a green ray person who is primarily green ray activation to vary on both sides of green ray, a large or a small amount in energy activation? Or is he stay primarily green ray? So, okay, I should have included actually that part so it makes sense. Apologize for that. So, what Don wants to know is if somebody is, say, green ray, that's what they call a green ray person, who's activated there, is it possible that this person may fluctuate within different energy centers, and or does he stay primarily in green ray? And we kind of infer already the answer to this. Do people like this vibrate and change in their colors in that way? So let's just read what Ra says. It's the final question we have for today. They say, we grasp the newness of material requested by you. It was unclear, for that we thought we had covered this material. The portion covered is this. The green ray activation is always vulnerable to the yellow or orange ray of possession. This being largely yellow ray, but often coming into orange ray. Fear of possession, desire for possession. Fear of being possessed, desire to be possessed. These are the distortions which will cause the activation of green ray energy transfer. All right, so they're talking about green ray energy transfer, of course, which is what we need to achieve. If you watch the previous videos talking about sexual energy transfers, then you know exactly what we're talking about. So Ra has two things. One, that they have covered this already, and the new information is in the next slide, and we're going to finish this session. So they say, the newness material requested by you, it was unclear, we thought we had covered this material. The portion covers this. The green ray activation is always vulnerable to the yellow or orange ray of possession. Remember, we talked about what orange and yellow ray mean for the individual. We are identity, and we are a individual, a self in a group. How do we behave as such? How do we behave as an identity, as a self? A polarized self within, the orange ray that knows, that exists as an individual, and how do we also act in a social setting? So these two are always endangering the the green ray. So that means that if you're a open heart person, you're always at risk of having the like they say, fear of possession or being possessed, fear of being possessed or fear of possessing, so, or desire, right? How do they phrase it? Fear of possession, desire for possession, fear of being possessed, desire to be possessed. So in any case, if as an entity you have an open heart and you have a fear of possession or a desire for possession, one of the two, then you may be at risk of the orange and yellow influence. Or in the other case, fear of being possessed or desire to be possessed. This is, of course, in the sense of a social setting or having at least one-on-one. It depends, how you feel. Then if you're having those fears, then yes, fears or desires, because you're not here to be possessed or to possess anybody. And so that is like a step down into from your heart. From the heart, you just know, once you transcend the heart, or get into the heart, you just know. I mean, you just don't care about what other people might say about you, or what they may want you to be, or if they want you, whatever. Any kind of manipulation that comes from the negativity that happens in orange and yellow ray, you're not affected by that. You shouldn't be. So you shouldn't be afraid of being possessed, because nobody can possess you. You shouldn't be afraid of possessing anybody, because you can actually possess anybody. And this is the great realization in relationships, because you just know that. You know that you can possess anybody, so why even try? That's just taking a step down, having that desire of possessing. And also, the desire of being possessed. You don't want to be possessed by anybody, of course. Why would you? Or the desire of possessing. I think I talk about that. So anyhow, that's just what they're saying. Now, the new material is it's pretty cool, pretty interesting. I like it. We talked about this already in the last video. Ross says the new material is this: once the green ray has been achieved, the ability of the entity to enter blue ray is immediate and is only awaiting the efforts of the individual. The indigo ray is open only through considerable discipline and practice, largely having to do with acceptance of self, not only as the polarized and balanced self, but as the creator, as an entity of infinite worth. This will begin to activate the indigo ray. Okay, so why this is so cool? Because first, the green ray, once the green ray has been achieved, that energy is flowing to your heart. Now you are opening the heart and you're receptive of this love. Remember, the heart is receptive. So at that same moment, the blue ray activation, or the ability of the entity for activating the blue ray, is immediate. You don't have to do much work. In fact, you don't have to do any work. All you need to have is the effort of wanting to do. How does this translate in our day-to-day lives? When you are feeling full of love, you want to express that. It's like, you ever felt like in a joyful situation and you just want to hug somebody and you just want to tell them that you love him for no reason? That's exactly it. When you're there, you just want to, share it with people. So that is the energy flowing through you, through your heart, and you say, my God, I can't contain this. It's too much. I need to express it. So this is just, boom, activate your throat chakra. Or you use it, and there's complete honesty there. There's no faking. When you feel it, you give it away. You give away that love. That's why it's impossible to fake, you can use your voice, and you can say things that, but, we know. We know when people are being fake, especially when they express their love. So I just love that part. Just knowing that you get to the heart and you can just express that without being afraid, of anything. It's just like, hey, this is me. Hope you like it, because this is what it is. All right, so the indigo ray is open only through considerable discipline and practice, largely having to do with acceptance of self. So, going back to what I said before, and I said this in the previous video. I don't know if it made sense in the last video, but so there is considerable work in first density, in third density as we know it, and then in fifth density again, because you're going to a turning point, like they said. In third density, you are accepting other selves as the self, which is a pretty hard thing to do. It's pretty hard to do that. Whereas from second to third density, all you have to do is say, hey, I'm an entity. I'm alive. I'm here and I can see you and I know I'm different than you. That's it. It's easy. In fourth density, it's easy too. You say like, oh, wow, I'm all this love. This is amazing. All I have to do is say it. But then in fifth density, you have to work with the acceptance of, again, it's acceptance of the self. Different from the polarized self, right? And different from, this is the work that needs to be done to get to sixth density. Different from the polarized self, which is the differentiated. Polarized means two. So me and you, sacral chakra, orange ray, me and you, okay, one-on-one. Polarized self, I'm a self, you're a self, okay? We just noticed that. Then the balanced self is the heart. balanced selves, okay, you know, this is me, it's you, okay, we're the same. So we need to, you know, we're balanced, we're good, you know, there's no difference, me and you, balance. And now, you know, it's the acceptance of self as the creator. So now it's like, okay, not only am I an individual, not only am I balanced with you and we are the same, but we are the creator. You know, like 3 different realizations. Hey, did you know you exist? Yeah, okay, orange ray activated. Hey, did you know we are the same? You know, yeah, great, you know, green ray activated. And then the last one is like, hey, did you know we are the creator? It's like, oh my God, it's awesome. So, you know, that's exactly what's happening here. As an entity of infinite worth, of course, I mean, once you realize you're a creator, you're like, okay, well, this whole creation was made by me, so let's have a ball. This will begin to activate the indigo ray. Of course, now you're just seeing everything as the creation. So, that's all I got for session 32. This is why I needed to split it into parts like you saw last time, otherwise I would have been here for 2 hours. So, let's go into the conclusions. We ran through wonders and through, again, it goes back to, I keep having the energy centers in my head because it's what's expressing everything. I mean, this is the reason why we are in this creation, to experience consciousness from different points of view. This is the adventure, you know, this is the beauty of being in the illusion. I use the word illusion, I use the word, I don't use the word meaningless, but I kind of infer those things when I'm talking about their density. But there is a huge difference in realizing that as wanderers, if you identify as one, I'm not quite sure if I am, I don't really care if I am, I just know that I am the creator, so doesn't matter if I'm a wanderer, if I'm a native from planet Earth, if I'm from Mars, Maldic, who cares? I'm just here, I just know who I am. I'm discovering that. At least I can see, I know that I'm the creator, I'm still discovering how to feel a creator. I'm not there yet, okay? But in any case, you know, as a wanderer, if you identify yourself as that, you can have 2 reactions to realizing that this is an illusion. You can have the reaction of, you know, lack of empathy and saying, screw this, I don't care anymore, I don't want to be, you know, part of this is all an illusion, so why bother? Or there is the possibility of seeing, oh, this is an illusion, let's have fun. You know, like you can just say, okay, you know, great, this is all an illusion, let's just have fun, you know, being who we are. Of course, you know, with higher consciousness, you know that this is an illusion based in love, and you know that you're the creator, and you need, you know, you see the everything gets activated right away. You have full compassion if you really feel that this is all, you know, an illusion made by the creator for the creator. Just have full compassion. You can't hate anybody, you can't not understand anybody. You know, it's easy to accept everybody, it's easy to see everybody as the creator. So I think this is the biggest realization, to know this and to know that this is an illusion. I can invest myself so much in it because in the end it won't matter. It really is like if you have a lucid dream, you wake up in the dream and you say, oh my God, I can do anything I want, I'm creating this. Of course, we're more limited here, we can't, there's free will because there are other entities around here, so it's even more fun. Because in a dream, you may run out of things to do and say like, you know, and I just want to have the surprising factor of dealing with another self who is another creator and is doing the same thing as I'm doing. You know, it's such an adventure, is what I'm trying to say. And, you know, the game has not rules, but it has parameters. And those parameters we have known as the energy centers. Those energy centers is how you perceive reality. Doesn't mean that you have to be, you know, shining in your indigo ray all the time and have no, you know, sensations of love, or have no fear for your life, you know, or have no desire for somebody else to give pleasure. You know, that's our orange ray. You are everything, so why not explore everything? You know, do what you want to do. Knowing that this is an illusion helps a lot, because you know that this is not serious. You should not take yourself serious, you should not take the creation serious. And that's why I said that people who think that this is a problem, that we need to fix something, there's no fixing in the illusion. It's all a dream. We're here just to have experiences and to increase that meter of love. So That is my best way to wrap this session up. Thank you so much for watching. There is a Facebook group that I have where it's mostly Spanish people, but I have a lot of bilinguals that are there, so feel free to join, post, comment, share. We have poets, musicians, artists, we have cooks, we have all kind of fascinating people in there that they just, you know, share what they have, you know, what they create. My intention is that, to have a nexus where people may share what they do, what they find, ask questions. I'm there, very active to always, you know, talk about questions or, you know, get involved in the conversations of others. So just my attempt to gather together some of the wanderers that are here in, you know, this channel, and they want to, you know, enjoy each other and, you know, have fun. So why not? I call it my tribe, so, or our tribe, it's a whole tribe. So if you want to join that, there is a link in the description, so you can join that too. Subscribe if you haven't, of course, like and all that stuff, so these videos can get to other people that may be interested in. And that's it. We'll see each other in session 33, where we have more content and a non-ending session, and we'll see what I mean by that. I'll see you then.